Loading a bunch of settings and shooting JPEGs with your camera is just about as much fun as you can have with photography. Over the last number of years, I've designed like a whole heap of Fujifilm recipes, which you can find over on my website, rossandhisjpegs.com. Something I get asked like daily over on Instagram is for Fujifilm recipe recommendations. So I thought I would make this video to share with you all my top 3 greatest of all time Fujifilm recipes. So let's go. Just quickly, before I share these Fujifilm recipes with you all, I wanted to define here what I mean by greatest of all time. For me, Fujifilm recipes fall into one of 2 categories. Either a recipe can be a look suited to a super stylized situation, or it can be a complete all-rounder producing great images no matter what scenario you throw at it. My 3 recipes featured in this video are the latter. 3 really reliable recipes I know I can count on whenever I need them. More specifically, these recipes all have a few things in common. So they all have some form of auto white balance to make them really flexible for shooting in a variety of settings, and they all have a clarity setting of 0 for ease of use. If you don't mind waiting the 3 seconds for your Fujifilm camera to process the image that you capture with clarity either turned up or down, then obviously turn clarity up or down depending on your taste. But for me, taking a photograph with a clarity setting, either plus or minus, the camera processes 3 seconds and I'm too impatient to wait for the camera to do that. If you like the look of minus clarity, but you couldn't be bothered waiting the 3-second processing time, then an option for you might be to invest in a mist filter to throw on the front of your lens. The only thing to note is that shooting with a mist filter is permanent and the results are visible on your raw images as well as your JPEG. So that's just something extra to think about. Anyway, 2 of these all-rounder recipes are color, and the other one is my personal favorite black and white recipe. So last week I loaded these 3 recipes into my Fujifilm camera and I took a drive with my wife Ruth along the northeast coastline of Northern Ireland to shoot some examples. I had envisioned a really glorious day to test out these recipes to show you, but unfortunately we landed the wettest, wildest, windiest, darkest, dreariest, stormiest day I've seen in a long time. The rain and wind and waves made it pretty difficult to shoot with these recipes, but I figured if I could get at least some good results with these recipes on the darkest, most miserable day ever, then just think what these recipes are capable of when there's really good light on a really lovely day. Anyway, here's recipe number 1. Unbelievably, it's the first recipe I ever made and still one I always come back to. It's called soft chrome. Whenever someone gets in touch with me saying they've just bought their first Fujifilm camera, soft chrome is the first recipe I tell them to plug in. Its beauty is really in its simplicity. With a base of the much-loved classic chrome film simulation, an auto white balance, and the dynamic range turned all the way up, soft chrome provides the perfect starting point for any photographer looking for a subtly stylized look. The soft in the name comes from the fact that the sharpness setting is turned all the way down, and combined with a strong small grain setting and a warm push in the white balance, this look is almost reminiscent of Kodak film. Soft chrome is a recipe that can work in pretty much every scenario you throw at it. So here are some more example images from my day trip with Ruth and this recipe loaded in my Fujifilm camera. That was soft chrome, one of the best starting point recipes I've ever made. Now for something with a little more punch. Fujifilm cameras are known for capturing film-like looking images with their built-in film simulations, but not everyone who's into photography is searching for that film look. Some people simply want to be able to shoot natural photographs with good color and good contrast. I created a recipe a couple of years ago called Blue Astia, which I think is my greatest recipe for capturing bold but beautiful natural colors. This recipe is obviously based on Fujifilm's film simulation Astia, which itself is based on Fujichrome Astia 100F film stock. But as far as film stocks go, I think Astia is probably one of the least film-like ones. For this recipe, I again have an auto white balance setting with a small push to the warmer side. I have dynamic range turned all the way up to 400 to protect the highlights and shadows coming from the punch in the tone curve. Blue Astia has a strong small grain setting, which I love, a tiny bit of sharpness, and the overall saturation controlled with a color setting of -2. That was Blue Astia, a great all-round recipe for everyday use. So on to my third and final greatest of all time Fujifilm recipe. And funnily enough, this is my most recent recipe, but don't be fooled, it's an absolute powerhouse. If you've been following my YouTube channel this year, you may have seen my new recipe, Oxygen Mono. I spent a whole month shooting JPEGs with this recipe, and I absolutely fell in love with the results. Oxygen Mono was created to be my ultimate black and white recipe that should work in every single scenario you throw at it. The base film simulation for this one is monochrome with a yellow filter. The dynamic range is set to auto, which means the camera will choose between DR 100 and 200 depending on what you put your camera at. There's a little punch provided in the tone curve and also contrast coming from the color chrome settings, which are both set to strong. I like my black and white images to have a load of grain, so the grain setting for Oxygen Mono is set to strong and large, with the smallest bit of sharpness thrown in there too. When designing this all-round black and white recipe, I wanted to add just a tiny bit more style to it, and so I chose to set the monochromatic color setting to WC+1, which adds a tiny bit of warmth. It's this setting that I think really ties the whole look together and adds a cohesion between all the images shot with it. And honestly, I love the results. So there you go, those are my three greatest of all time Fujifilm recipes: soft chrome, Blue Astia and Oxygen Mono. Three recipes that are flexible, that adapt to pretty much every scenario you throw at them, and that you can rely on to capture great looking images with your Fujifilm camera every single time. So you can find these and all of my Fujifilm recipes over on my website. It's rawsonestjpegs.com. If you try them out for yourself and you want to say thanks, the best way to do that is to drop a little something into my tip jar. It would be massively appreciated. Anyway, as always, make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below telling me your greatest Fujifilm recipe of all time. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in another video. See ya!